Devo, thank you for asking me to make a video about how to get you caught up on the solar cycle because I think other people might find it useful as well. So just kind of like high level, we have the solar cycle. This is 365 days of the year, okay? Each one of these spheres is a month or a month, right? Each one is a lunar cycle. So each one of these spheres is one of these. Okay, so that's the 28-day cycle, that's the lunar cycle. So what you do is you're kind of think like this is being taken and it's putting in here. So the current one that we're at the connect sphere of the year. And this is my purpose for this part of the solar cycle, but I'm kind of drilling down on it in my lunar cycle in the 28-day cycle. And then each week I kind of like drill down on it even more, right? So to get you caught up, this is where we're at right now. This sphere is going to be the summer solstice here at the top. So where we started was at the winter solstice. This is in December. So this is the December full moon. That's this lunation. That's where I begin my solar cycle every year. And then each one of these is a different lunar cycle. Now, taking consideration, this year had a blue moon. So it had an extra solar cycle. It had 2 full moons in the month of May. So I just focused on this message twice. I just kind of looked at it a little bit deeper. And so then if this is the winter solstice and this is the summer solstice, and we're really looking at this as a coordinate, as a map, we have the spring equinox over here and we have the fall equinox over here. Okay, so you can kind of look at it as like a compass or a direction type of map. So what you do when you begin the solar cycle is you come up with a purpose. This is the focus of attention where you're going to drive your thoughts, ideas, imagination, passions, actions, like everything is going to go into that focus. And this is something that you're focusing on for 365 days. So I do have note pages. I sent you one. This is a different style one that go along with helping you figure out what that purpose might be and if you have an accompanying goal. So think of it as a goal that you would take 365 days to do. You would have all these different lunar cycles to go through to make that purpose and goal fulfilled for the year. So the way the cycle works is that it's a cultivation cycle. In this part of the year, you're doing that activating energy. This is where you meet the mentor. This is the waxing crescent moon. This is early spring. And then in this quarter, and so here it's the waxing gibbous moon. This is where the hero or the heroine is beginning to approach the ordeal. So in this part of the year, we're really approaching the ordeal where we face the dragon. Just like at the full moon on the lunar cycle, we face the dragon so we could seize the treasure. That's what you're doing here in the solar cycle. So right now, we just completed where the hero or the heroine is approaching the ordeal to face the dragon and to seize the treasure. So that's really about what this lunar cycle is that we're on right now. So to get you caught up with where we're at, I want you to kind of like make a choice. Think about it in 2 ways. You can either think of this as your beginning. In some cultures, they do begin at either the spring equinox or the summer solstice. You don't have to start down here. You could start anywhere that you go. So you could start your solar cycle right here, still determine your purpose and your goal and maybe any shadows, challenges, dragons that you might encounter in this adventure of the year. And then you go and you start making each one of your lunar cycles filled in. Or you could just keep going until you reach back to the connect sphere that you had created when you started, right now. So this would be basically a year later. And you could just always begin your solar cycle in the summer, where I create mine in the winter solstice, in the winter time. This is kind of like the darkness, the quiet, the still. It's very often the time where you're like preparing the soil to plant the seeds for spring. That's why I like to begin down here. But it's nature, it's real life. There's never a start and stop to anything. Remember, it's a verb, everything is happening. So I say, use your intuition if you just want to begin here and start filling it in. Or the second option would be, go ahead and put your purpose that you have for this lunar cycle that you started on your map. Go ahead and put that that sphere here, that message here. And then determine what your purpose is for the year. Come up with the goal, the shadow, you know, these types of things. And then look back at the year that you've been having and think about what was going on in December. A great way to do this is just, if you take pictures on your phone, you could just go back and see what kind of pictures you were taking. If some people might do social media, if you have another journal, or you just have a great memory. Think about what was going on in December and just put, you know, a word or two as the theme of what was going on for you at that time. And then do the same thing for January, February, March, April, May. We had 2 blue moon, or, you know, we had 2 full moons, so that was a blue moon. So this one would be twice, right? This is a longer period of time. And that's why you want to refer to the calendar, the lunisolar calendar, because it's going to show you that, you know, this was May and this is June, but there was 30 days in between these 2 cycles because we had that blue moon. And you'll learn more about the lunar cycle, how it kind of speeds up and slows down with all of the different rotations that are going on. That doesn't matter to this point, but you can just think of this 60-day period, basically, what theme you had going on over the last 60 days. Put you know, whatever you want to summarize it in as 1 or 2 words. And then you are starting right here, right now. Okay, so now let's take a look at the same map, but in a blank format. So you can get these downloadable on quantummemoir.com or on Etsy. But what I want to do is I want to zoom in on the template so you can see that the inner spheres, ground, intend, observe, connect, express, and refine, those are all labeled just like they are in the lunar and earth cycle mind maps. We also have labels here for winter, spring, summer, and autumn. And then each one of these lunar cycles is labeled a month. And it's not a regular calendar month. It's when the full moon falls in that month. That'll be that lunar cycle. So that's the solar cycle mind map and the universal time cycles. And then what I think you were inquiring about originally was, how do you use this note page to help support that? So on the note page, you have a little space here to figure out what are you going to focus your attention on for this 300-day cycle. So you can just take some notes there, and then whatever you kind of summarize that to is the purpose that you put in the center of your map. And then you come up with a goal, a 1-year goal. This is something that's quantifiable. This is something that you could, there's a little circle here. You check it off at the end of the year once you've done it. And then you have a 365-day challenge. That's something like the dragon or a shadow. This is a block that might prevent you or stop you from fulfilling your purpose and your goal. And then you have the bold move. The bold move is basically like an adjustment and action that you can take that will overcome that dragon or shadow. So this is something that's kind of propel you forward. And then when you begin the map, you can just kind of chart the navigation and where you're at in the winter solstice and kind of what you see coming forward. Obviously, you're getting started at the summer solstice. So what you could do, is at this, I think it's on June 21st, you could go ahead and take some notes of what's taking place in this reflection of the summer solstice. And then you can come up with a goal for the autumn, early autumn and late autumn. Those would be 2 goals that are going to help you fulfill that 365-day goal. So basically what you're doing is you're taking a large chunk of time and you're breaking it down into 4 different quarters. And then you're having setting up those intentions at the winter solstice, kind of like you do at the new moon. And then you're checking in at the summer solstice, kind of like you do at the full moon. And then there's many other pages that go along, the manifest, a gratitude list, and then you get to your lunar cycle, which we've already talked about. That one you're pretty familiar with now. So let me know if there's anything else that I might have missed in explaining how you do the solar cycle. And I'm looking forward to writing along with you. And then if you want to take it just a little bit further in understanding, it's the hero's journey narrative, the one that Joseph Campbell has written so much about. I call it the fool's journey. So, you have your purpose. We're already quite familiar with that. And then we know the 13 seed words that take you around this cycle. We're quite familiar with that. But what I want to show you is just kind of this perspective of that everything below this horizon line is the inner world. This is kind of the familiar, that's something that you're comfortable with, that's regular or normal to you in a sense. And then everything that's on this horizon line above that, that's the outer world. Those are the things where you're kind of like going outside in the world. This is like outside of yourself, and you're experiencing and engaging with the world that way. So you have these two halves, you know, you have a below and above, and then you have the waxing and you have the waning. So everything to the right here is the waxing energy. This is the spring, right? This is where we're cultivating the energy or the cycle. And then this is autumn, this is the waning, this is the fall. This is where we begin to harvest everything. So if you look at this as a heroine's journey, a hero's journey, or the fool's journey, you have the character. We'll just use my little crow. That's my little totem. And he goes into the ground sphere. Okay, now he knows who he is, what's going on. He has some sort of perspective. He's grateful for something. But he hears the call. There's a call, some kind of inspiration or intuition that wants to take him forward, right? Like kind of like the wind carrying him forward. So he can't help but to move forward. And on this path, he meets the mentor. That mentor is going to help him clarify this desire to fulfill this purpose. This is where this little fool here will begin to mobilize energy and gain courage and information to move forward. And then at the horizon line, you could think of this as the dark. Now the sun is starting to rise on this hero or this fool's journey. Eventually, he goes in to approach the ordeal. Here is the observe and the evaluate sphere. So in the observe sphere, this heroine is gathering information so she can evaluate it and that she can assess the opportunities that are available. Whatever's going to be best to help her move along on the journey to face the dragon. This is the connect sphere, where you're really appreciating others and you're kind of like gaining a lot more courage and momentum at this point so that you can face the dragon. And when you face the dragon, you get to seize the treasure. So now the fool is definitely the hero, but there's still some ways to go before they can return home. Here is where the fool is going to meet others on the road home. This is where they get to share their treasure, the awareness that they've gained and cultivated in this cycle. That's where things begin to accelerate. Right here, you have trust the process. This is where the fall starts to happen. So everything starts to kind of like amplify in a quick way as we approach, mid-fall here. This would be kind of like where the sun is setting on this fool or now hero. And now he's back into familiar territory. This is the return with the elixir. Here, this little fool crow is going to refine, it's going to enhance lessons, and then it's going to integrate. It's going to unite all of the elements, all of the things that it's gained on this journey or adventure around the purpose. So after it gains its elixir, now it's going to come back to its ground sphere and its purpose sphere as a new little being. And so that is the fool's journey, the hero's journey, or you might even want to call it the heroine's journey.